跟住話哇你屋企被抄㗎
And she said, "Your house has been raided." Hello and welcome to Holding Heritage. This is a space to explore and have honest conversations around the Asian North American experience. We'll focus on Canadian refugee stories, family, heritage, and bridging generational gaps. My name is Holly. Thank you so much for joining me. Hello and welcome to another Exploring Roots episode where we focus on real refugee and immigrant storytelling directly from refugees and immigrants themselves. Today's episode is one of my all-time favorite stories from and about my papa, aka my maternal grandmother. It showcases her incredible wit and bravery during a really difficult time. The conversation you're about to hear is between myself, my mom, and my grandmother. I'll be translating the English as you'll hear, and you'll also notice a few times my mom and grandma switch between Cantonese and Vietnamese, which is a super often occurrence in our household. Let me give you some context before we jump into the story. As you know, my family is ethnically Chinese, but grew up and spent their lives in North Vietnam. My mom's side specifically lived in Hanoi. They were forced to leave the country in 1979 during the boat people refugee crisis. The fall of Saigon and the South Vietnamese government happened in April of 1975. North and South Vietnam were formally unified as the Socialist Republic of Vietnam under communist rule in July of that same year. A couple months later, in September, the South Vietnamese currency, known as the First Dong, was replaced by a new currency known as the Liberation Dong, at a rate of 1 new Liberation Dong to 500 First Dong. A few years after, on May 3rd, 1978, the North and South Dong were then unified as well. Prior to this, there was the Northern Dong as well as that Southern Liberation Dong. When this happened, 1 new dong equaled 1 northern dong, or 0.8 southern liberation dong. When this currency change happened, there was a cap to how much individuals or families could legally exchange. For example, a household of 1 person could only exchange a maximum of 100 dong. For a household of 2, the maximum was 200. For households more than 2, per additional person, they could only exchange 50 dong more each. There was also a maximum you could exchange regardless of the number of people in your household, and that was 500 dong. These currency changes affected countless individuals and families across the country, essentially turning hard-earned money into worthless paper overnight. Okay, so now that we have some context, let's get into today's story, which happened May of 1978 in Hanoi, just after the currency unification of the North and the South.
嗰日係點樣嘅？
換錢，越南有，即係佢冇講俾你聽 ，change the money 啊。
What was it like that day? Vietnam changed their currency. They didn't notify you though.
即係而家咧就唔同，你有戶口喺銀行嘛，舊時冇啊。
Now is different. You have an account with the bank, but back then that wasn't the case.
咁啊有啲有錢佬先有，我哋呢邊有。
I mean, there were really wealthy people who had accounts with the banks, but no way we were able to.
咁啊，淨係擠喺屋企㗎嘛。
So we just kept our money at home.
咁啊換錢，咁佢哋梗係跟蹤我哋，知道我哋係屬於係做政府工。
So when the currency changed, of course, since we were a part of the working class, they followed and tracked our spending. My grandmother worked in a manufacturing warehouse. She helped make candy, mooncakes, and other food-related items. This manufacture warehouse was owned by the government, so she was carefully watched.
但係都係有做出邊。
And I also worked on the side. My grandmother also did side business. My grandpa was a herbalist and worked for a herbalist company owned also by the government. So on the side, my family also sold herbal medicines outside of their day jobs.
不過冇知你做啲乜嘢，但係都知道你係有錢。
They didn't know exactly what we were doing, but they could see that we had more money than we probably should have.
咁樣咧，你屋企又有電單車啦，有車衣機啦，又即係睇你啲細路哥啊，食嘢啊，衫褲啊，着啊都好豐富咁樣啦。
So they would see our house have a scooter, a sewing machine, even the way our kids were, the food they ate, the clothes they wore, all of the things we had were really abundant.
咁佢又實掉啲嘢，咁啊換錢，咁我又冇錢換喎。
So they were already suspicious, and when the currency change came, they also noticed I didn't have any money to exchange.
聽到換錢，快啲走去買嘢食咯，幾貴都買。
And that's because when I heard that they were going to change the currency, I would go and just spend the money on food. No matter how expensive things were, I would just buy anything I could. So like you would have cash at home and then all of a sudden one day they would be like,
It's just paper. So then when the currency exchange day came, what po4 need to do is need to spend the money. If you leave it, even you buy the stupidest thing, is like Tài said, má bảo đưa biết 800.000 đồng cho nó đi mua kẹo, mua gì ăn á.
Here my mom recalls in Vietnamese my grandmother giving one of her older sisters about 80,000 dong just to go buy candy.
買晒啲伙食，咁佢跟住我哋噶啦。
So I bought a bunch of food and groceries, and I think that's when they really followed us.
跟住我哋買乜嘢佢知晒，不過我唔知啊嘛。
So from then on, anything we bought, they knew about it. But at the time, I wasn't aware of that.
咁啊，第日啫，今日換錢，聽日第日即刻嚟屋企抄嘢。
So the very next day, after the currency change, they came to the house and searched everything.
咁我寧願我去買貴嘢食，我攞嘢食翻嚟，我食仲好過我俾你政府啊嘛。
I'd rather spend on expensive things or food than give it or exchange it to the government.
第二日朝早一定係嚟抄我屋企，幾犀利啊！你話，你冇走得去邊度啊？
So the very next day in the morning, they came to search the house. I couldn't go anywhere. There was nowhere to hide.
拉埋我去嗰陣時，我有 baby 阿爸。
They arrested me, and at that time, I was pregnant. My grandmother was about 7 or 8 months pregnant with my youngest aunt at that time.
佢話你要講晒，你冇講晒呢，我俾你喺呢度生仔。
They said I had to tell them everything, confess to everything, or else they would make me have my baby in prison.
收尾佢嗰日啊，夜晚阿 Cathy 可憐我去買佢哋添。幾姐妹去買雲吞麵寄入俾我食，佢冇俾入去睇我，不過佢話我寄啲乜麵。
So that night, while I was in jail, all the sisters went to buy me wonton soup to send into the police station for me to eat. Although they weren't allowed to come in and actually see me, they did give me the wonton soup.
媽，你記得啊？我講俾你聽，我唔知屋企佢一入屋企係你係唔喺屋企，或者爹哋係唔喺屋企，我唔識。
Mom, I don't know if you remember this, but when they raided the house, I wasn't sure if you or Dad were actually home or not.
我行路返嚟，即係有條巷。
I was walking home from school through the alley.
跟住隔離嗰個妹話賣雪糕嗰個妹兩姊妹嘅越南咧，成日嘅貴鏡賣貴鏡嗰兩個妹咧。
And our neighbor who sold ice cream, those two sisters that always sold popsicles.
佢走嚟嗰個巷嗰度，即係我行過嗰巷嗰度有賣乾龜啊嗰啲嘢嘅。
She ran over to me in the alley, right where they sold those toy spinning tops.
跟住話：哇！你屋企被抄㗎！
And she said, "Your house has been raided."
咁我仲鬧佢，我話：你把衰口啊，超過你啊，超過你把衰口啊！
And I yelled at her. I said, "Curse you, curse your mouth, don't say those bad things."
跟住佢話：唔係㗎，真係㗎，你屋企被抄家㗎！
And she said, "No, I'm serious. Your house really has been raided."
跟住我望佢個樣咧，就唔係似講大話啦。
And then I looked at her face, and she didn't look like she was lying.
我走翻屋企。
So I ran home as fast as I could.
咁我知我哋係韓界啊嘛，間屋我向住嗰間屋咁見到成大門打開。
I remember standing facing the front of the house. The doors were wide open.
我入到屋企，我唔見到你啊！
I walked in and I didn't see you anywhere.
我見到即係個櫃，我哋嗰啲衣櫃嗰啲櫃啊，cái tủ to của má đó mở banh hết ra.
I saw our closets and chests all open.
唉，抄
開晒，我又唔見到你， 我唔記得咗有冇見到葡主，不過我諗佢都係喺屋企。
They were all open, and I didn't see you. I don't remember if Grandma was home at the time, but I think she might have been.
不過你知唔知啊？哇！我見到乜嘢都冇晒。
But wow, when I looked, nothing was left.
我哋嗰啲床咧，仲係嗰個床係咁啫，
I remember just seeing the bed, and that was it.
冇嘢，
乜嘢嘅都
乜嘢冇晒。
攞晒。
跟住見到嗰啲紐啊，嗰啲紐咧，
喺細個攞翻嚟。
塔斯度紐
佢話係咁啊。
佢哋話佢攞晒去，我話你攞晒去做咩？佢話係咁。
Nothing was left. They took everything. Even the cufflinks they took. I asked why, and they said that it was because they were gold.
我講佢俾聽添，咁啊我咪有咗 BB 咯，咁佢話帶我去坐監啦嘛，攞晒我啲嘢話帶我去坐監，因為我諗計仔。
So let me tell you, I was pregnant, right? And they took all of my things, were telling me that they were going to take me to jail. And in that moment, I had a bit of a thought, a plan.
係新我佢未抄我啫，咁我有一頸鏈。
And it was only my body that they hadn't searched yet. And I remembered that I had a necklace on.
我話我好肚餓啊，我要食飯。
So I said to the officers, I'm really hungry. I need to eat something.
我係有食，但係我講老實，我都唔係肚餓，不過攞嘢嚟講，我食咁嘅，我食一碗飯。
I did eat, but I was honestly not hungry at all. I was just stalling for time, so I told them that I was going to eat one bowl of rice.
食完我話我好熱啊，我要去沖涼。
After I ate, I said I was really hot. I need to take a shower.
我有條頸鏈，我解條頸鏈，我擠喺個沖涼房。
When I went for a shower, I took off my necklace and then hid it there.
我細聲搣阿婆，我話我有嘢喺沖涼房，因為沖涼房係我哋自己用啫，冇有邊個用啊嘛。
And then when I came out, I quietly whispered to Grandma. I said, I left something in the shower because that shower was just ours. No one else used it.
咁阿婆都好醒，我知道一入去梗係入去手上噶啦。
I think I was pretty smart back then. I knew that as soon as they brought me in, they would search my body.
哇，犀利啊媽！因為佢有
激到死啦，我都仲諗到啲咁嘅嘢。
幾 smart 㗎。Cause she want to take the necklace off to put it in the house. Then she go. That's the last thing that she have in her body. 即係最後一樣嘢值錢。
就算我冇嘢，我都沖個涼靚涼先，因為冇得沖涼。
Even if I didn't have anything to hide, at least I could take a nice shower. Otherwise, once I'm in prison, I definitely wouldn't be able to take a shower.
媽你好叻啊！
Wow, Mom, you're amazing.
講到好笑，我真係我話我諗起嚟，我話我而家我都唔知點解我又諗得啲咁嘅嘢咧。
Man, it's really funny to even look back on now. I don't even know how I even thought to do that.
咁你坐咩車？即係行路上去差館或者咧？
So how did you even get to the police station? Did you walk or what?
冇，佢梗係有汽車載我去啦，載咗貨先，載晒啲家私先。
No, of course, they took me in a car. They had cars to take away all of our furniture and things first, and then a car to take me away to the police station.
佢俾你喺邊度住？點？
唔係一間房就細自己嗰度溫住咯，鎖住咯，係咪？
So where did they keep you? They just locked me in a small room by myself.
佢冇鎖手，即係嗰晚佢哋又寄雲吞麵啊俾我食，好似幾日啊乜嘢。
They left me unhandcuffed in there. That was the first night I got the wonton soup, and I think I was there for a couple of days after.
嗰晚我就唔知你幾耐啦，不過嗰日即係你，我唔知係我翻嚟我翻嚟我冇見你，即係你被捉咗啦，因為我記得。
I don't remember how long you were in there for, but that night I remember I came home and I didn't see you. You had already been taken away to the police station.
我翻嚟咧，我唔見到你噶啦。你知唔知我喺行街，我走去行總係嗰度係嗰個 police station 喺嗰度啊嘛。
You know, after I didn't see you at home, I actually ran all the way to the police station.
嗰時我細，我望醒好多燈光，我喺出邊我望，我企嗰度，我唔敢入去噶嘛。
Back then, I was so small. I was just standing right outside of the station, and I saw all of the lights, but I didn't dare go inside.
不過我知道你係捉嘅去嗰度，我唔知點解我走去嗰度，我係走去嗰度，我企嗰度，係咁樣啫。
But I knew that you were locked up inside. I didn't know why I actually ran all the way there, but I just stood there. That was it.
我又都唔記得係我喊，我都冇喊。不過我知道係我好驚，我走去企一陣，跟住又走返屋企。
I don't remember crying. I don't think I did, but I know I felt really scared. I just ran there, stood there for a second, and then ran back home. We then asked my grandmother what it was like at the police station, what sort of questions they were asking, and how she answered them.
收尾佢一陣又嚟問，一陣又第二個問，3、4個又走去問。
When I was at the station, one person would come and interrogate me, and then another person, and then a different person, about 3 to 4 different people.
你點樣喺呢度有呢啲，又點樣又有呢啲，點樣又有呢啲。
How do you have these things? Where do you get these from? How do you own these?
咁我有乜嘢我咪講事實晒咯。
To whatever they asked, I answered truthfully.
不過我好精，我即係譬如講我買車啦，買雪櫃啦，買啲嘢啦，我全部我喺細港買翻嚟，我有晒紙張。
I was being careful with my answers, of course. The car, the fridge, all the things that I bought. I got them all from Saigon, and I had all of the paperwork.
咁佢話呢啲喺邊度嚟？咁我話我屋企人俾，咁同埋有啲就我買。
And for some other things, when they asked where it came from, I told them that my family gave them to me, and some of it I bought myself.
咁佢話你點解你有咁多錢買？
And then they'd ask, well, how do you have so much money to buy these things?
我話我個老爺俾我，我話佢阿爺俾我。
And I told them that my father-in-law gave me money.
咁冇得講啦，我老人家俾我。
And so they couldn't refute it or prove otherwise.
不過嗰時 grandpa 死咗啦。
Because at that time, Grandpa had already passed away.
不過呢，我一模一樣，個個問我都係咁講。
But no matter who was questioning me, I always answered exactly the same way.
問呢佢就寫晒，咁啊第二個問我，佢又寫晒。
Whenever they would ask me, they would write down my answers. And same with the next person. They would ask me and write down my answers.
佢話你要講事實，如果你冇講事實咧，我俾你生仔喺呢度㗎。
They kept saying to me that I had to tell the truth, otherwise they would make me give birth in the jail.
咁個個又問得，佢都啱晒啦。
And so everybody that interrogated me all had the same answers. They all matched.
係冇？咁佢係攞晒我咁多嘢，佢心足咯，2車喎，2大車喎，攞晒我全部生果機佢都攞㗎。
They had already taken all of our things, 2 big trucks full of our belongings. They should have been satisfied already. They even took my food processor.
連飯煲都攞啊，唱碟乜嘢都攞，100隻嗰啲大唱碟啊。
The rice cooker and even all of my vinyl records. I had about 100 of them.
100隻咁。
哦，係話啲toàn係對節nhạc vàng.
Oh yeah, record. Because those days that before that, you're not allowed to listen.
Most of these vinyl records that my grandmother had were from Chinese, Mandarin, and Hong Kong artists, even some Vietnamese ones, but most of the music you weren't allowed to listen to at the time. They were considered forbidden.
乜嘢都攞清楚，乜嘢都。
哇！你有100 ，that's why 我哋上船，我哋翻大陸，你仲賣好多喎。
賣好多錢啊！攞錢買嘢食啊嘛。係啊，不過佢收咗雜費，我20解佢啊。
Oh really?
我雜費個20解。
So they confiscate 80 of the records. So give her back 20 only. So 你攞嗰個20，
有帶埋上船。
Take it with us. And you sell it at 嗰個竹山。
好重啊！嗰啲嘢，嗰啲條好鬼重啊！咁大隻啊，好重啊！
With the remaining 20 vinyl records that they had left, they actually brought with them on the refugee boat and were later able to sell them or exchange them for money, food, and other basic necessities.
媽，邊個去走難帶埋 record？
咪係咯，擺晒喺個岸嗰度賣，咁賣人哋冇錢咧，俾魚啦，俾肉啦，嚟食咯。我都唔知我點解我咁鬼死。
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to one of my grandmother's stories. It's hearing about these experiences that inspire and motivate me to keep asking questions about my family and heritage. The strength of especially the women around me and within my family feels empowering and absolutely priceless. As always, you can check out the episode show notes at holdingheritage.com for some extra content and photos. If you like this episode, please share it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, so you can shoot me an email at holly@holdingheritage.com. I'll meet you back here again very, very soon. Bye! Intro and outro music by Blue Wednesday. Be sure to check him out. He's amazing. And as always, Holding Heritage is proudly created, produced, and geographically based on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of the Tsleil-Waututh and Comox nations of the Coast Salish peoples.